Hello and welcome to another session of Music Matters with Ev. And I am so pleased to say that we have in the studio with us someone who has had such a profound effect on my musical experience. Welcome, Katherina Heinrich.
Thank you so much, Everton. It's good to see you after all
And
these
you,
years.
wow, and you too. Are you okay?
I'm
Well,
okay.
good, good. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm sure that we're going to find out so much. So I want to dive straight in. Who is Katherina Heinrich?
I ask myself the same question every day. Yeah, someone else every day, I guess. No, seriously. I mean that's a very difficult question. Um, and it's I think for a lot of artists, I believe it's a very difficult question because I think that a lot of artists can grapple with their identity a lot. And maybe that's due to this kind of sensitivity that kind
Mm,
of comes with the job, comes with the
mm,
territory,
mm,
where you are very your senses are always kind of out there and pick up a lot of things, and you feel constantly inspired.
mhm,
Sometimes you can feel overwhelmed,
mm,
um, and and also regarding your own character, that you have a lot of interests maybe. I know a lot of artists who have several different kinds of passions, or their interests are very intense regarding certain subjects and certain techniques, even, how to do things, and genres as well. And I'm no exception. I wake up every morning and I wonder, like, what role am I fulfilling today? Am I going to be the writer? Am I going to be a musician? Am I just a human being who chooses to do this or that at any given day? So it's a very hard question to answer for me. But I know that one thing that I really love in life is for sure music. And it
ah,
comes very naturally, and it always
ah,
has.
yes.
So
So give us very good. Oh, Katherina, I'm just going to ask you something which I should have done before we gone live. If you could just position yourself slightly to the right.
mhm.
That's it. I'll tell you why, because there's a logo at the top right of the screen.
Yes,
And
I see it.
yeah,
So,
that's it. That's perfect. Lovely. Okay, thank you. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this is live. Okay, right. So tell us about your musical journey from the start.
well, my family, my grandmother, her name was Bettina von Bechtolzheim. She was actually quite a well-known opera singer, concert
Hmm,
singer.
hmm,
And so from the female line, generation wise, I think I got a lot of that musicality through my grandmother, and then passed on to my mother, who also sang a lot, played a lot of nylon string guitar. It has this, and she kind of like put me into this tiny tiny tot musical group that was based on this philosophy of Karl Orff, this Austrian philosopher who felt very strongly about discovering your musicality through percussive instruments. And that group and playing with these percussive instruments and having so much music around me, like, totally inspired me. And
hmm,
I don't look back from there, like, because it's been just part of me so much. This
hmm,
this approach as well to not have music placed upon you, like as a
hmm,
concept from the outside,
hmm,
but to let it kind of unfold from the inside, and to
hmm,
discover it by this playful experimentation,
hmm,
and not by fixed concepts. So,
hmm,
even with jazz, there are certain concepts, like how you should play chords and which chord should maybe follow another chord. But I always liked the approach to try things out and to just see how they sound, and then to
hmm,
make a decision whether it kind of sounds right or not, and
hmm.
not let that decision be made by other philosophies, or by structures that were already in place by someone else, in a way.
What you're describing, Katharina, is so it's so apt because music has is almost like it has a life of its own, and what
Yeah.
what you're describing is letting that life develop.
Yeah, and letting your relationship with it develop, and everyone has their own relationship to music. There's no two relationships the same. And
Wow.
even on a daily basis, the relationship could change. It's definitely like an entity by itself that, that you can communicate with, that you can let into your life, that you can reject, just like a relationship with a human being.
You know, I feel like I'm in a masterclass. Okay, so what about what about the very first time that you performed per se as a musician, as a singer songwriter? Can you remember?
No, no, I really can't. Probably as a teenager, maybe not in school, but I remember once playing in my school, playing an Irish song for my project. I had this project called Ireland, and I learned an Irish ballad that I played in front of class. But I had performed previously before that, so
Hmm.
honestly, I can't remember.
Okay, so at the moment, I know that you're from Germany.
Hmm.
So when did you, because our paths crossed when you were in Bristol,
Yeah,
and that was when you were staying in Stroud. So when did you make the transition from Germany to the UK?
I didn't. I arrived from the UK from Ireland. I lived in Ireland prior to that,
Oh,
in Wicklow, Ireland, and Dublin partially. And after that, I moved then straight to Stroud, Gloucestershire. Yeah.
wow. So what was music like for you in Ireland?
It was wonderful. It was actually like my mother emigrated to Ireland when I was 17, and I decided to do the same. So we emigrated at the same time, and I then immediately immersed myself in the Dublin music scene, played at all the open mics, and eventually then also played live gigs in pubs, and that's what my life was in Ireland for a long time. That I just played live in pubs, met different musicians, played with different musicians, and really at that point I was deeply into folk, really like folk. Yeah, that was kind of my thing. And then gradually kind of advanced to John Martin and Nick Drake. And then you started to have these jazzy influences already. And then it kind of went from there. But Ireland is just like, if you have a love of music and then you discover Ireland as a country, it's kind of like, I don't see it as a big surprise in a way, because Ireland is the country for music,
Hmm,
and Ireland is music, and any
hmm,
person that you would meet on the street would be able to sing. I
hmm,
don't think you would find many Irish people that wouldn't sing or
hmm,
wouldn't play an instrument. It's almost impossible.
hmm.
So you
Right.
can really immerse yourself. Everything is just music. The countryside is music. The ocean is music. The people are music. It's everywhere. You can't get away from
I wonder if the Irish Tourist Board are listening.
it. And actually, also, what's amazing about Ireland, which I only found out way later and never really took advantage of it, but Ireland is one of the only countries in the world where, as a musician, you just basically don't pay taxes. You just don't
What?
pay taxes. And no matter how much income you have, I believe, like that's why, maybe a lot of musicians try to have their first residency in Ireland, even U2 or whatever bands, if they're really Irish and they're truly based in Ireland and can prove that, I believe to this day there is no taxes on your income. And
Okay.
the reason why is because Ireland is a bardic, a barden country, and it has such a history of music that it's like deeply ingrained in the culture, so much so that it actually seeps into the tax system, which is amazing.
Amazing. All right. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask you now because I remember there's so many things I want you to go over and share with us that I've experienced meeting you and understanding about your musicality and your musical journey. I want you to tell us about the time when you started to learn the guitar. It was an experience where you were staying somewhere and that
Yeah,
was the only instrument there.
yeah. My mother owned a dilapidated, haunted, it has to be said, house on the total countryside, like with no access to anything. And I decided to have a retreat there, an unlimited retreat of however long I needed. And it was pretty scary because you were there. Around you were only ruins, literally ruins of castles, ruins of barns, and cows, cows and sheep. That was it. And then this strange house with a massively enormous acoustic because the ceilings were really high, the roof was really high. There were no curtains or anything like that, so everything just reverberated a lot. So whatever sound you made was amplified in quite a beautiful, flattering way.
Mm.
And my mother, I think, or a friend of the family had left their old guitar there. It was a nylon string guitar. And always this nylon string coming in again into the conversation. And at some point you can just imagine, when you're there and there is nothing. There's literally only countryside. And the only thing you can do is just, I don't know, enjoy the silence, enjoy the wildlife and the nature. And after a while, you want to do something else. And then there was this guitar standing in the corner. So I just kind of messed around with it. And again, I was so not used to playing a stringed instrument in a way that I kind of developed my own style of playing. Because I kind of had to, because I had no reference at all. So I actually started to pluck it like a harp. And so the very, very first album that I recorded in a way, of all the songs that I composed in this house, in this period, they all sound like I'm actually playing a harp. So it's very hard to hear that it's actually a nylon string instrument. And if you like, in privately, I can send you some recordings of that, and you will hear what I mean, because it's really weird to have the guitar played in this way. But it's the only way I knew. And because of the acoustics, it was such a magical experience to pluck two strings and listen to what kind of harmony they create. It was all about like harmony and how different strings sound together. And that was, I think, what fascinated me like most in the beginning, the acoustics and just the softness of the strings and the softness of the nylon strings and the intervals that were created by, plucking different strings.
Wonderful. Right. So what brought you then to Stroud, to the UK, to Stroud?
A lot of different reasons, but it was kind of a point in time where I needed a change of scene. I needed a change of my life. And I had a colleague at the time who had done an assistantship in a kindergarten in Stroud. And she knew that I needed a change. And she said, you know what, I can just, so I went to Stroud for a few months and I came back and I immediately had to think of you, because I think that you in Stroud, that would just be perfect. You would be so happy there. You should just go there. And that's what I did.
Well, I have been there to take part in a performance, and I must testify that the audience was very, very comforting and receptive.
Yes.
It was a really good experience. So you've given me something to think about. And
What's really amazing about the place is also that you expect from a place with that little amount of citizens, you expect a kind of that sounds terrible, but a kind of an ignorance in a way, or not such a worldliness in a way, because it's kind of goes with a small town. People are busy with their lives, and art usually is not a big thing in the foreground at all. And yet Stroud is so different from other places because it's very worldly, and it's very in the front of, like, ahead of its time in a way, regarding so many different issues.
Mm.
which is so unusual for a small town. So I
Mm.
actually wrote a love song for Stroud. I don't have it recorded, but I have a love song for Stroud, and it's a very important song, very
Mm.
important lyrics.
Well,
Yeah.
right now I'm going to tell the viewers how I met you. And I was working on radio. I was working on local radio at the time, and I was doing a magazine program which enabled me to go and see things, interview people, and come back, edit, and then put it out on the show. And I remember I went to a performance where you were one of the artists, and I sat down and you started playing, and the voice, the sound, the overall sound was beautiful. But you know what made me come and talk to you afterwards was the fact that you sang a song that lasted just over 9 minutes, and you kept that audience engaged in
Oh
that
gosh,
in
I did.
in,
I don't
in that.
remember.
I know I'm going to remind you the song. The song was about your experience trying to make it in
Oh
the music.
yeah, SAE song. Yeah, I
That's
remember.
the one. I just thought, wow,
Self-addressed envelope. That's what it was called.
that was just amazing. I just thought I need to go and talk to this young artist and find out more, because that was just, I've never seen that before. Somebody keep an audience captivated for over 9 minutes on one song. So tell us where did that come from?
Well, it was basically a musical description of the process that at that time a lot of me a lot of colleagues of mine and me went through, because we were applying for gigs, and we were applying for playing at weddings, and we were applying to be played in the radio, and we were applying for record deals and so on. And the deal at that time, because email wasn't really available at that point,
Mm.
and YouTube wasn't available at that point. So we still had this old-fashioned approach of like recording CDs, making a flyer, getting it to
Mm.
the printers, putting it
Mm.
in an envelope. And the deal was that you always had to use a self-addressed envelope if you actually wanted to ever hear back from anyone. And even when you did that and you did everything by the books, it was very unlikely that you would ever actually get that envelope back. So that's why the song was called Self-Addressed Envelope, and it kind of describes the often frustrating process of getting all these parcels ready and writing letters that are very polite and are very appealing and make yourself sound really great. And so the song is really about that. Yeah.
Amazing. And then that led to a collaboration which changed the my experience of being a guitar player. I thought I was a guitarist until I had to go and change my approach. So I'm grateful to you, because since I've changed my approach, I haven't looked back. And that's why that's why you've had such a profound effect on my musical experience. What about you? There was a time when you told me you went to America, to New York, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that. What was that like?
It was really it was a life changer for me. It really changed my life. I remember it quite clearly. It was 2008, and I felt like I'd done everything and been to a lot of places, and felt quite isolated in a way at the time. It was like a phase where I was studying or just about to study. Um, and it was a phase where I just longed for something different, longed to be somewhere else, longed to experience a totally different mentality, a totally different way of thinking. Um, and I had been very afraid to go to America for many years, and always had refused when friends of mine there had invited me. But I was at the point where I felt like, no, now is the time. I needed a change. And I was very, very nervous when I arrived. But it just blew my mind. And at the time, the first time I went there, the very, very first time, my virgin time to New York, was actually spent in a African American community in Brooklyn. That was not that undangerous. It was quite. There was a lot of crime happening at the time.
Okay.
And my friend lived there at the time, and so I stayed with her. And I just got immersed in the scene, in the community very quickly there in the short time that I was there. And it just totally blew my mind because of the fact that it was a African American community, there was Black music everywhere. And I'm like the biggest fan of Black music. In fact, I can probably not even dance to any other music. So for me to be there in the summer when they blocked off all those roads and created road parties, street parties, where they had these massive ghetto blasters playing this amazing Black music, like real funk and stuff, but like really, really loud with a fat bass that, reverberated, like all the buildings, the brownstone buildings were reverberating from the space. And you see like children and grannies and old guys dancing like crazy on the street together in the heat, like it was 30 degrees Celsius. And they also like opened up the fire, what do you call it? Like those fire, the water fountain. Fire hydrant. And they it was like semi-legal to do that because they just wanted to have fun and they wanted a refreshment. So they just opened it and the water just totally splashed out. At the same time, this Black music was like playing and everyone was together barefoot on the street, just dancing their socks, their non-existing socks off. And it was just a total revelation for me. And like all my fear of life and everything just melted away in that afternoon. I was totally blown away. And I was especially touched, and I still have that video by this old guy with some kind of like a walker, or what do you call them? This kind of metal thing.
The frame that he walks with, yeah.
And he like basically he started to almost like make love with this frame. He was like, this Black music was playing and he held the cymbal frame and he was like, putting it in the air and then putting it down again, dancing around, making these sexy moves. And I'm like, yeah, that's the attitude. That's the spirit. That is where the music comes from. This is where it came from. Now I am in the source. I'm actually in the source. And that was like a really profound moment that afternoon. It was like, I'm so glad I have a video of it.
That's amazing. So it's a wonder that you came back then.
Well, I went there every year ever since. So
really?
Yeah.
Oh
every year for 3 months. Yeah.
What?
Yes.
Apart from 2020, I presume. And
yes.
Okay.
Exactly. The whole thing's
Okay.
in 2000.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, we're going to tap into a few other things, but what happened? How were you musically active up to 2019? Did you move back to Germany?
Yeah, I mean, I was like in Stroud, I was extremely musically active. I had a lot of gigs with really incredible musicians. I released a lot of albums. Then I decided to do a music degree in Dartington College in Totnes. Did 3 years, finished it, bachelor with honors. And then I moved to Germany. Actually, it was the time 2009, there was the swine flu.
Mm-hmm.
I got the swine flu.
Oh, you did?
I did for a month. I was like really struggling I really thought I couldn't make it. My lungs were like really bad. But I decided, okay, I can't be in this moisture environment. It was very moist at that time in Stroud. And I decided to just go to Germany and go to the sun and just see if I can well at least. And I had a friend that I could stay with. So I stayed with him, and in 2 days, after 2 days of sun, my lungs dried up, my bronchitis dried up, my whole illness dried up, and I was well. And then he told me that there are some people who want to learn the ukulele. I had started to play the ukulele in New York, and these people wanted to learn the ukulele, and I started to show them a few things, and they told me that I'm such a fantastic teacher that I should consider doing that for a living. And then the word got round, and before I knew it, I had an entire career as a ukulele teacher. I didn't even plan that. So parallel to that career of teaching ukulele and giving workshops, I also, had a lot of gigs with musical colleagues that I met in different venues, in a lot of really great venues in Germany at the time. Some of them has closed down since then. Some still exist, but a lot of them have closed down since then. So there was this one thing about playing live with different musicians, and another to teach.
Wow.
And I hadn't really taught music beforehand very much before. And I always envied the colleagues that I had in Stroud that were always teaching. And I always thought, gosh, what would that be like? But I never really delved into offering anything. And then I got so into the teaching and so into that mode of encouraging other people to be musical, that I kind of put my own musical career in the background, really. And it just happened very naturally. So I was still doing stuff, but the emphasis and the focus was really the teaching and the actual composing for students. That was like one of my main passions at the time, was to create a book of ukulele pieces that were really fun to play in an ensemble with different people, where some people would play the groove and some people would play the melody, and whatever their level, they would be still able to play it, and it would be accessible. The tunes would be fun, they would be playful, they would be jazzy, and everybody can have fun. So excellent. I developed this book, and I composed one piece after the next. Some were like swing, some were more folky, and they were really popular amongst my students. They loved them, and we had a lot of fun.
Good. So what then? So then tell us now, how did you cope when 2020 hit, March 2020? How did your musical world respond?
It was a very strange time, and one of the things that definitely happened for me was one of the main things that affect me about it is that in society at large, even before Corona, there was always this unspoken thing that there's something not quite serious about music or art in general. Yeah, that it's something that is either a luxury or is something that can't quite be taken seriously unless it's very famous, like, Damien Hirst or whatever. And that it's something that otherwise is not really relevant to life, not like food or like health or care work or IT or whatever. And I think that throughout the ages it has always been an issue, that artists always were struggling with finding their identity and finding this pride within themselves, that it's okay to be an artist and that it's actually also a worthy contribution to society. And that has always been like, when you read about different artists through the ages, you will come up with that subject time and time again, in poetry, in whatever art form. And certainly that is already very relevant before Corona arrives, that how relevant is music? You know, how well is it established in our society? How well is it regarded? How well is it rewarded? You know, and there's this joke, of course, as well. You know, like you know, you often hear from promoters when an artist applies for a gig that you say, well, you could just play, you know, a few tunes in our restaurant for an hour, and then, you know, we'll give you a free meal, and you should be grateful for that. And then you see these jokes on Facebook, like, okay, the restaurant, well, you just give us a few meals and we'll eat them, and then we'll just see if we like them. You know, maybe one day we'll pay you for it. And nobody would do it, right? Nobody would do it. Of course, you pay for every meal. So you have to you have to pay for the music too. Why should the music be free? You know, it's a myth that artists can live from love and air alone. It's a myth that needs to be debunked quick. So so I think that Corona and this thing that happens, I don't know how much it's in England, but in Germany, basically musicians and culture is the thing that was the thing that now is not allowed. You know, you can't have gigs, you can't give workshops, restaurants are closed, cafes are closed, and the whole cultural branch basically can't be really active. It has like a it's not allowed at the moment. It really isn't. Gigs are not allowed. So this whole issue that has already existed before Corona, you know, how relevant is music to society, is now even bigger, and has kind of has become, or the government has kind of confirmed what everybody already suspected, that the government also considers us, the artists, as not really worthy members of society. You know? And so never has that been more openly shown. Never has that been more in the foreground, like now.
Agree. So in terms of your activity then, I presume that you are able to continue teaching?
Online, yes, and also in person, but only one-on-one.
Oh, yeah. you can visit one-to-one lessons.
You can have households together. If it's one person, you can be with another person from another household, so to speak. If you wear masks indoors and you have the window open, that's okay.
Okay. Wow.
But no workshops, no groups, no gigs. Apart from very unusual gigs, there's a website called sofaconcerts.com. I think it's .com or .de for Germany. And this is a great concept because people can book you to play in your backyard. So you can play for someone's birthday, for instance, and you can arrive in their backyard and play for them, and they can stay indoors with the windows open, and you can serenade them. And they pay you, you know, something, or someone else pays you and hires you to do it for them, and you play a concert for them in their backyard. And it's safe, and they are indoors with the window open. You know, they can hear you, they can see you, they can experience you, but they don't have to endanger themselves. So this is the way to go. And I've had several bookings through Sofa Concerts so far, including one gig that I played for a duke, for an actual duke, who turned 80, and his daughter hired me to play for him.
Ooh,
and he happened to be a jazz pianist, actually. So he loved all jazz songs that I played, and he was able to sing along with every one of them, which was really sweet.
Excellent.
Yeah.
God, that's something for your scrapbook.
Indeed.
All right. So what I want to do now is ask you about the future. How do you see the future unfolding?
Who knows? Who knows how the pandemic develops? Who knows which human rights we will get back and which ones, you know, will be suspended for whatever time. I think a lot of that depends on decisions that are going to be made on how the pandemic is going to be handled. So it's very, very hard to make plans at the moment. There's no point in me printing out posters with dates when some workshops are happening. We don't know when the lockdown is going to be. And that makes it so very hard to plan at all. What I'm doing right now is I'm producing a lot of songs in my home studio, and make videos of songs that I really love playing and singing, and hopefully get some more gigs through sofa concerts, some backyard concerts, and then we will see what happens. It's good to continue giving online concerts. I give online concerts as well at the end of the month. At the end of March, I'm going to give another online concert on Facebook. I have a lot of colleagues who give weekly concerts online, Facebook, asking for some contributions if possible. Really talented colleagues of mine, Tommy Scott being one of them, who is an amazing pianist based in Cheltenham. I've worked with him on my third album. He plays every week on Fridays on Facebook, and I love being part of the show and watching him play. It's very gifted. And yeah, it's challenging. It's really challenging. And on my list of to-do things is basically just making a lot of videos so that people can see what's out there, what I can offer, and take it from there, basically.
Okay. And what advice would you give to anyone who may be thinking of taking up some sort of musical career or activity?
I would say do it for the sake of it first. When you are being creative, forget everything and give in to that thing, that relationship, and whatever it wants from you, and don't think beyond that, and just do it for the sake of it, and whatever comes after you can think about afterwards, but in that moment don't think of anything else. And also, if you are seriously thinking about doing music, know that a lot of flexibility is going to be required. A lot of flexibility on many different levels, and a lot of nerves. You need strong nerves, because it's not a particularly predictable world. It's not.
Definitely not now.
not just from the point of view that it's not predictable because you never know when your next composition will come, but also from the point of view that you don't necessarily know when your next gig offer will come or when your next student will arrive. You just don't know these things. You can do your best in promoting yourself, but then a lot of things are really up to an unknown quantity. And so it's also good when you embark on a musical career to have something else that can ground you, whether it's like a tiny little part-time job, or it is just another passion that you can also delve into to just get a bit of a break and get a bit of a perspective from it. That's, for me, it's upcycling. Like sewing and doing crafts is for me like the really nice balance between music, because it's so different. And also, teaching is also a nice break from actually doing music, because you're giving something to someone else. You're encouraging someone else's musicality, and it's good to find at least one more thing that you can also do, and then I think to me it feels more balanced that way.
Excellent. So before we go through the fun question, I want to ask you to give us information where we can keep in touch with what you're doing, where you've got a website or your Facebook link and so on and so forth.
Sure. Yeah, my current website, which is in dire need of changing, is called musicwhatelse.com. musicwhatelse.com.
.com. Yep.
Just have I got time to explain something about that link or about the
Of
name
course.
of the...
Of course. Of
Okay.
course.
So basically, one time when I really doubted being a singer and a musician in Stroud, I went to this life coach and told him that I really think I should just be a secretary because, you know, I just have too many doubts about who I am and what I should be doing. And he laughed in my face, really cheekily, and said, everybody here knows that you're a singer. How come that you don't know that? You are a musician. What else? And so I was so shaken by that conversation with the life coach, and I was so encouraged to continue being a singer, even if I doubted, that I took the thing and made it to my, you know, my email address and my website. So music, what else to know?
Wow. Quite right. So if we go to that website, can we find out about your future workshops, your current recordings, your videos, your performance, anything that we can hear your music? Can we get it all from that website?
Like different buttons. You have like a button for gallery. You have a button for videos. You have also access to the button goodies, where you are straight led to the products that I sell, which are my albums, which are my ukulele books for ensemble, which are my poetry books. There's a lot of products and merchandise there that you can look at. And also, you can contact me. There's a contact site where you can just literally directly contact me, and then I can give you the current information about what's happening.
So that we can get all that from musicwhatelse.com.
Exactly. And my YouTube channel is Cat Music What Else.
All one word?
All one word, yeah.
Okay.
So that's my YouTube channel. There you can see all the latest and also old YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And I don't have a Facebook page with my musical stuff. So those two things are at the moment the main contact and the ways of seeing my music.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We will be, well, I'm always keeping an eye on you, but I know other people now will join me. So this is the final question I want to ask you, Katherina.
Yeah, I'm curious.
If the year 2020 was a human being, what would you say to him or her?
Oh, wow. Bugger off. Apart from bugger off, I mean, that's just the first thing that comes to mind, really. Bugger off. But you probably want something much more profound. So I don't
know. I've heard we've heard all sorts to that question on this channel. So that's direct, and that's kind of to the point as well.
I'm sure I'm not alone with that sentiment.
No, the very first person I interviewed said that as well. So it's gone full circle. All right. Well, Katherina Heinrich, thank you very much for entertaining us on Music Matters with Ev. And what I'm going to ask as well is, obviously, we want to do this again because obviously things change, your music develops, opportunities happen. So we want to keep in touch with you and make sure that everyone can know what you're about still musically and so on. So if that's okay with you, we'll be doing this again.
I would love to. Yeah, I would really.
But in the meantime, you take care and thank you.
And you, please stay healthy.